hard to believe that the Linux kernel turned 30 this year. Actually, turning 30 sounds pretty great to me, and probably to anyone else who's old enough to remember their first experience with Linux. I remember fondly installing my first Linux distro. It was a game changer for sure. Just want to congratulate Linus and kernel developers everywhere for this important contribution to computer science. And congrats to the Linux Foundation for supporting the open source community. It's incredible to see how Linux is used today in everything from the smallest ARM cores to the largest data centers. At Google, we've been using it from our earliest days to help bring technology to more people. I'm proud of the work we have done together. So congratulations to all of you and to friends of Linux everywhere. Can't wait to see what the next 30 years will bring. Thanks and have a wonderful time.
Hello everyone. This is Toshi Shibata from Renesas Electronics. Renesas is one of the world's leading providers of embedded semiconductor solutions. I wanted to extend my congratulations and thanks to the Linux Foundation and its ecosystem partners. Linux has had a tremendous impact on what we do in technology and made lives of all the people easier. I'm honored to share my message with you commemorating Linux 30th anniversary. We Renesas began working together with the Linux kernel community back in 2005. Together, we first introduced Linux to digital consumer electronics, which opened the door to many other applications. We are now being very active as a senior member in such projects as automotive-grade Linux and Yocto. Devices with embedded compute, which we Renesas support, are being increasingly important in the cloud infrastructure ecosystem. And those devices are now being defined by software, as you all know. There is no doubt Linux, as an open and collaborative technology, is at the center in driving those innovations. We Renesas continue to support Linux and together work to make everyone's lives easier. Once again, congratulations and thanks to you all.
Hello, I'm Arvind Krishna, Chairman and CEO of IBM, and I am absolutely thrilled to recognize Linux's 30th anniversary. IBM has been deeply passionate about the success of Linux. Our support started decades ago, more than 20 years ago, and I would definitely say it is long before Linux was fashionable. We started the support of Linux. We painted penguins on the streets. We were fined for vandalizing public property, a unique moment for IBM. But we know that Linux was not just another operating system. Just like we knew the internet was not just another network. Linux is an incredible platform for innovation. I think it's the greatest community for collaboration the world has ever seen. And Linux today is shaping the future of so many cutting-edge technologies: cloud, artificial intelligence, IoT, and quantum computing. And there's every reason to believe Linux will continue to serve as the cornerstone to innovation for decades to come. I think it's the bedrock for what we all do in computing. So here's to many more years, decades, and centuries of Linux innovation.
Over the past 30 years, Linux has been the innovation engine for many emerging technologies. And I believe we have just scratched the surface of what Linux and open source overall can do to really change the world. Red Hat has a strong and proud history with Linux, from the early days in the 1990s to today, with Red Hat Enterprise Linux powering thousands of the world's largest organizations and governments around the world. Red Hat just would not be here today without the innovation, collaboration, and community around Linux. This 30th anniversary of Linux is more than just a celebration of software. It's a validation of the open source development model and the open source way of working, where the best ideas can come from anywhere or anyone for the benefit of everyone. No single person or organization can solve the world's greatest challenges alone. Only the open model and Linux can give us the power to solve tomorrow's biggest challenges.
Congratulations to this amazing community on achieving your 30th anniversary. It is tremendous to think about what open source and Linux in particular have achieved over the years and made possible through the tireless, dedicated, and brilliant software engineering by a global community. From creating new markets to enabling new technology frontiers, open source development is the fabric of our world and the foundation of our shared future. Intel Innovation is all about doubling down on our open source and community commitments, so expect to see Intel engineers contribute more to open source and be good partners in the journey ahead for both Intel and the Linux Foundation.
Happy 30th anniversary, Linux. What an incredible evolution and impact Linux has had over the past 30 years. It's easy to list the myriad ways that Linux touches the lives of virtually everyone these days. It really is at the epicenter of the modern world. Beyond that, what's most exciting to me is the way that it has changed so many people's lives. Not just through the technology that's built with Linux, but through the opportunities that Linux and open source have opened up for people around the world. I love hearing how people from developing countries or underprivileged backgrounds have found Linux or open source, taught themselves to code, and transformed their lives thanks to the opportunities that that skill provides. As an LF board member and the Chief Operating Officer of GitHub, thank you. Truly thank you to all of the community members, past and present, who have made Linux what it is today and helped spawn a movement that has truly changed the world. Here's to so many more incredible stories to come in the next 30 years.
Hi, this is Pat Gelsinger, CEO of Intel. I want to say congratulations and well done. Thank you for all of the hard work. The Linux Foundation has had a massive impact on the digital world we live in today. You created the open platform on which the world depends. May the next 30 years lead to as much open-led transformation as the last 30 years. Phenomenal. Congratulations. Thank you.
Hello, this is Dowson Tong from Tencent. Tencent is proud to be a member of the Linux Foundation. We believe in open source, and we are fully committed to the open source community. The Linux operating system kernel serves as the foundation of Tencent Cloud infrastructure. Many developers of Tencent Cloud have been contributing code for new features and bug fixes back to the Linux community. We definitely want to do more. Best wishes to everyone in the Linux community. Happy 30th anniversary. I look forward to the next 30 years of the continuous evolution of Linux and the innovations brought by the community. Thank you.
Happy anniversary. I'm delighted to join today's celebration of the Linux kernel. It's hard for me to believe that this adventure has already lasted 30 wonderful years. Congratulations to the Linux Foundation and to all Linux developers. Your contributions to the open source community have had immense and lasting impact on the world. The Linux kernel has had historic importance for Samsung. Our own open source journey, in fact, started with a Linux kernel contribution. And ever since, we have been actively contributing to the project. It is also a key element of Samsung's products and innovations. We've been using the Linux kernel for our products' major platforms, such as Android and Tizen. Samsung is proud to be both a contributor and a user of the Linux kernel. Here's to another 30 years of continued technology transformation. Thank you.
Congratulations to the Linux community on 3 decades of collaboration and achievement. And thank you for the partnership with all of us at Microsoft. This ecosystem has had an incredible impact on defining the future of technology as well as our world. Open source is key to our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Some of the most vibrant communities, developer tools, and frameworks are open source. And of course, across the company, we contribute to this community. We are all in on open source, and we are deeply committed to building on our work with all of you in the years ahead. Thank you so very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sid Sijbrandij, co-founder and CEO of GitLab, the DevOps platform. And I was happy to commit to making this video, and I'm truly touched you reached out. Congratulations to Linus and the multitude of kernel developers who have logged countless people hours over 30 years, developing the most successful platform in the history of computing. When it comes to cloud, nothing tops Linux. My first experience with Linux was trying to get my computer configured and the monitor configured by editing a text file. I think you'll find this echoes the nostalgic sentiment of many developers. In decades leading up to the first release of Linux, we saw the initial decline of free software as vendors pushed to license their products and prevent unsanctioned distributions, modifications, and sharing. Linus relicensing Linux under GPL in 1992 was a pivotal moment for software. The Linux kernel, in combination with GNU, made the first complete free software system. We are lucky to be on this branch of history where free and open source software prevailed. I would like to personally thank Linus as well as the LF and CNCF leadership in the form of Jim and Priyanka, just to cherry pick a few people for their contributions to the open source ecosystem. It is difficult to fully grasp the giant impact Linux and Git had on the software community. We remain forever grateful for the difference you all have made. Here's to another 30 years of collaboration.